3rd of February 26, and I'm just looking at this X post from Elon Musk a few days ago on the 20th of January, and it just says universal high income, which is of interest to me because I've always thought of it, first of all, as universal basic income, they call it. But here he's talking universal high income. And coming from him, I think that gives it a lot of possibility that it's going to happen, because he's the richest person in the world for a start. And he's saying he was replying to a post from Tesla. Our mission is to build a world of amazing abundance. And you can think what you want of Elon Musk, and I do as well. We've all got opinions, and politically, I think a lot of the time, well, no, a lot on immigration, I agree with him in general. And I should say as a start, I meant to start all my posts with all my videos with the idea that we should have a referendum on immigration, or have a single issue party on immigration as well. I think we're at that point now that we really need that. We need to have a referendum on it. In Britain we should have had one in 1948. In America they could have had one in 1965. In Australia in 1972. Canada 72 or something. Anyway, back onto this, because I think universal basic income, I mean, when I first heard it, I just thought it was ridiculous, the idea that people are getting money for nothing. But now personally, I think it needs to happen, really, somehow. I mean, I'm still thinking it's probably not viable. Everyone's saying it's not viable. Even Professor Richard Murphy, who was Corbyn's or John McDonnell's economics advisor, and he believes in what is it they call it, MMT, monetary. He's an economist, but he was an accountant, I think, and he worked in high income level, and he could see the way they were all dodging tax, and it upset him. So he ended up promoting fairness, really, and how. But even he didn't think, and I saw him he posts every day on his own YouTube channel, but even he didn't think basic income was viable. But he was talking to two guys from University of Newcastle or something. They were saying no, it is. So I don't know. I mean, that MMT, I think only him and Professor Steve Keen are the only ones that think that's a viable thing as well. That idea is that, well, some people would critics would call it the magic money tree, but they see it as running a government running an economy isn't like running a household, because a household, your income is fixed, whereas a government can print money, and you shouldn't go by the money side of it. You should go by the wealth. Should be regarded as the resources of all sorts, whether it's land, whether you've got gold or oil or whatever, plus all the workers, all that thing. That's how you should judge wealth, not by money, so that's the sort of thing. But even he didn't think universal basic income was viable at the moment. But now Elon Musk is saying universal high income, and like I say, on his views, he's got a lot of views, say on tax and things like that. I think he's got a typical right-wing view on tax. I don't believe in parties. I believe in parties and party hampers. I don't believe in them. I believe we should be in a referendum country like Switzerland, where a democracy is based on referendums. They're having 8 referendums in March. They have quarterly referendums. Very low turnouts usually, but that's up to the voters, isn't it? So, yeah, I think as time goes by, I think across the board people are becoming more informed on politics through social media, basically, and they're going to become more interested, and then they're going to vote more anyway. So, yeah, just looking at this. So the fact he's saying universal high income from somebody who I would call how would I call it, libertarian on tax, something like that, economics, so this is the exact opposite, really. So I'm really hopeful that this is a sign. But also on 2 points on this, well, 3 points actually. One, I would say like America, Australia, UK, Canada, the West really, even Japan, um, are highly desirable countries to live in, etc. Whereas it seems like China, even though it's the second biggest economy, and really it's probably the biggest already, and India, they don't seem to be countries that people want to move to, and the people there want to move to the West. I mean, I'll check that. I've just asked Gemini about China inflow and outflow. So there's a consistent net loss of citizens with the fleeing economic pressures countered by a short-term surge in short-term foreign visitors. Let me see. The number at a glance. The net migration rate for China remains negative, meaning more people are leaving than moving there for long-term residency. I mean, it's the second biggest economy and it's the one growing fastest out of the big economies. So that doesn't make any sense. If economy is the only reason people are supposed to be moving, you know. So net migration. So say last year, or maybe 310,000 or moved, or that's net. So there was trend direction, stable negative, so they're still going out. So minus, that is minus. And the outflow is 350,000 leaving, increasing middle class, HNWI. I mean, these are people you want to keep, I would imagine, in a growing economy, you know. Inflow, long-term foreigners, but they don't get citizenship there, really. It's very difficult to get citizenship there. So inflow, 20 to 40,000. So that's recovering but low. And short-term entries, 170 million plus. So that could be like holidays and stuff, right? Sharp increase, tourism business. So that gives you an idea. Like China's the second biggest economy, but it's got an outflow of emigration. And I'll just look at the other stuff. Who is leaving? The outflow is no longer just about students. It's increasingly about wealth flight and middle class relocation. I mean, any economy will want to keep these people, I would have thought. Millionaire exodus. China is expected to lose approximately 7,800 high net worth individuals in 25-26. While lower than previous peaks, it represents a massive export of capital. Middle class run. There's a significant uptake in professionals moving to Southeast Asia, Thailand, Malaya, and Japan as Plan B destinations. Irregular migration. There has been a notable surge in non-traditional routes. For example, over, say, 30,000 Chinese citizens have attempted entry into the US via the southern border annually in the 24-25 period, a trend that persists into 2026. And who is coming? So they've got a visa-free surge, but they're all short-term, I think. Short-term foreign entries, brain gain inflow. They're attracting several thousand high-level STEM researchers, many of whom are ethnically Chinese scholars. So that I think their citizenship is mostly to do with ethnic. So they probably would get to citizenship, I think. Anyway, my point was that the West seems highly desirable, and you can't really call it the R word because Japan is part of the West, and really South Korea as well, probably. So, how come those two are part of the West, and other countries don't seem to be feel that way or whatever? Anyway, back onto this. Yeah. So just as Elon Musk is saying this about universal high income, not even basic income now, I think that it's going to happen because of automation and it's going to basically, there's not going to be enough jobs because robots are going to do them, So, I mean, they're already talking about doing that sort of stuff in Amazon warehouses. We're going to have long distance lorries soon. Will be robots or whatever, automated. So automation and robots, So and once again, the government have totally been blindsided by it. I think. I mean, even Larry Fink was talking at Davos this year. He was saying that countries where the populations are dropping, automation and robots, etc., and AI are going to really make them sustainable still, which I always thought would happen. That's what I thought would happen. But we've been sort of taught, no, it's not going to happen for the foreseeable future, etc. I mean, we're not that far away from driverless cars now. I mean, Tesla just done a driverless car in January there. Apparently, other companies have done them a year or two before that. I think Google might have even done it with their Waygo. I don't know, maybe in 2018 or something like that. So, really, all these things just going to suddenly appear. Whole sectors of jobs are going to be out. We've got robo-taxis now as well in quite a few American cities. I think in the moment they still use supervisors, but they'll go as well. But I don't know if this is the first time he's said this, but Elon Musk's post, this is what Grok's saying, proposes universal high income as the outcome of AI and robotics creating unprecedented abundance, evolving from his 2023 concept, distinguishing it from basic income by enabling luxury without work. Quoting Tesla's mission update to build a world of amazing abundance, it ties directly to Optimus robot advancements, implying automation will fund societal wealth without traditional jobs. Replies reveal polarised views. Enthusiasts hail it as a poverty's end via capitalist innovation, while sceptics decry it as a disguised communism, fostering dependency, with over 12,000 responses reflecting ongoing universal basic income, universal high income debates. I'm back to looking at Gemini to see if any countries are using universal basic income, which is meant to keep you out of poverty, basically. So, yeah, it's not like the welfare state. I mean, everybody would get it. So, even if you're working and whatever. So, and I'm not viewing this as from a socialist point of view or anything. I don't regard myself as, liking Jeremy Corbyn, the Socialist Party, identifying with them. But I think it's something, well, for a start, I think it's going to have to happen because so many people are going to be, there's going to be no purpose for them in terms of employment, and so you're going to have something, and I think it's the way it's going to go anyway. I think it's the way civilization's going to go. So I'm not looking at it from a socialist viewpoint or anything, even though I regard myself I don't regard myself socialist. I don't identify with them. If I would say identify with any party, maybe the Greens, but they wouldn't have me anyway because of immigration, which I think is the only thing people should be voting on in the West at the moment. So, yeah. But also, I think it's ironic that our governments have messed up so much that, as I say, just as they've changed the nature of these countries, like in America, 1965 was probably the change. Yeah, also 1925 they had a change. Yeah, I mean, America, Australia, and all these were all you could call British colonies that were colonised, basically. But I wouldn't say they were British, although there's a lot of British, especially Australia. But America, British, but you could say Northwest Europe. But maybe it was the British that started it, really. You had the French as well. I mean, Bono the other week was saying that the USA is the best civilization ever. And he wasn't saying it. I agree with him in terms of, I mean, personally, I would prefer to live in Britain, Denmark, Sweden. I think Australia, even Canada. Although America is number one country, really, in my opinion, in terms of people's dream, and also the landscape and stuff. But yeah, so yeah, Bono was saying that, and he wasn't saying it in the same way I'm thinking. He was saying it. He thinks literally, and he was saying it. Don't ruin it with Trump. I think his message was, and I think Trump's crazy and all that, but on one issue he's probably might save America. Or it doesn't look like it really, but maybe. But yeah, I'm just looking at this. So I'm not looking at this from a socialist view, and neither is Elon Musk, I would argue, because I think Elon Musk is quite strong on uh, not the kind of tax system that the patriotic millionaires want. He definitely wouldn't be welcoming the patriotic millionaires who you should follow on X. Every socialist should follow them, or every nice person, I think. And patriotic millionaires, anytime there's a discussion on tax, um, someone from patriotic millionaires should be on the panel so that we can compare them to the other millionaires, because they usually have another angle they want you to believe. But I think they're giving a false angle, and the patriotic millionaires are giving you a true angle. And the patriotic millionaires aren't socialists either. They say because they want us to live in a stable country, and they think it's unfair, the tax system, in favour of them. So, back on to universal basic income. This is what Gemini says. As of 26, no country has fully implemented a permanent nationwide universal basic income that covers all citizens without conditions. I mean, personally, I would, maybe bring in conditions. Yeah, the rich don't get it. I mean, I remember, I think it was Alan Sugar, who's the guy in The Apprentice. He says it's ridiculous he's getting the winter fuel payment, because he's mega rich, mostly from land ownership, I think, or assets, rental leasing, not from his actual original business or whatever, Amstrad Trading or whatever. But I don't know about that actually. You need to check. But he's very rich anyway, and I agree with him. I mean, he shouldn't get a winter fuel payment, So I wasn't fussed when Keir Starmer was going to do away with the winter fuel payment, because I knew he would see it be all right. He would see this as the poor pensioners all right, even though maybe they don't really need it either, especially with the triple lock thing. In terms of energy, we should all have solar panels on our roof, have a battery, and be in a virtual power plant, and we might even be close to free energy, but that's not the way it's going. Instead, they're getting a winter fuel payment and payment top-ups and etc. So, while the pure form of universal basic income remains elusive due to the massive costs, often estimated at 20 to 30% of a country's GDP, several nations are operating quasi-UBI programs or long-term pilots. So, active quasi-UBI programs, these are the closest existing examples of a universal cash flow, though they often have specific regional or funding limitations. The Marshall Islands. In late 25, the Marshall Islands launched a program called ENRA, which provides approximately $200 US dollars every quarter to all citizens. While the amount is modest, it is notable for being truly universal within the country. So it looks as if they might be the first to be doing total universal basic income. I wonder how much, maybe 200 US dollars is a lot of money over there, maybe it's worth $1,000 locally or something, in their own currency. I don't know. Do they have their own currency? But that's interesting. That only started last year, so that shows you how raw this idea is. Macau. Since 2008, the Wealth Partaking Scheme has distributed annual cash packets to all permanent and non-permanent residents. In recent years, this has been around 10,000 patakas, about $1,240, say 1.2k dollars for permanent residents. So that's in Macau. Is that not part of China? I don't know. Alaska, USA. The Alaska Permanent Fund Dividend is the longest running UBI-like system. It pays every resident an annual dividend, usually between $1,000 to $3,000, funded by the state's oil revenues. Well, I definitely believe in that. If a country's got some sort of natural resource, then the people should get part of it. It's a shareholder idea, really. So I didn't know that. That could be quite a lot, $3,000. I mean, Some people could almost live off that. I mean, not quite, but I mean, I would say in the UK you would need maybe, I don't know, £9,000 to survive. That's if you can get a really cheap rental place or and that sort of thing. Uh, yeah, but I'll need. I'll try and calculate that actually and see. I'm just looking at this. How little could someone survive on annually in the UK, including housing? So the absolute minimum between surviving, staying alive and housed, and a minimum income standard, a socially acceptable standard of living. So there's two distinctions. Well, meaning it would be heated. They would have, well, a mobile phone, yeah, definitely, with internet connection. I would say you could get by with unlimited on your mobile. You could use it as a hotspot, so you wouldn't need a landline. Um, Based on 2026 economic data, the lowest end survival minimum. Well, and also it depends if you're on your own or it's a family. I mean, for a family, it's a lot more, obviously. Survival minimum 14,500 to 16,500. I think that's far too much for one person anyway. Like you could, I reckon, £9,000. Probably less than that. I'm talking about if you've got a mobile phone as well and that sort of thing. Not Sky TV or something like that, obviously. Or if you're living in a low-cost area like Burnley, Inverclyde, or Hartlepool, and practicing extreme budgeting, you can survive in this alone. Housing, a room in a shared house. No, I think you would have or a small studio. Yes, one bedroom flat. Say rents in these locations can still be found for 450, 550 per month. I wonder if they're talking about in the private sector though. You would think in the social housing sector it might be cheaper. So bills, minimal, cheapest mobile internet plans, and no car, relying on walking or cycling. Food, strict basket shopping, yeah, £35 to £40 per week. So an acceptable minimum 30,500. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I would call somebody like that almost middle class. You know, maybe I don't know. Maybe I live in too much poverty or something, but 30,500. According to the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, a single person 26 needs to earn roughly 30,500 annually to reach the minimum income standard. This is the level required to not just stay alive but to participate in society, e.g. occasional social activities, buying a gift for a friend, or having a basic emergency fund. A person living full-time on the national living wage, rising to £12.71 per hour in April 26, earns approximately £23,000 to £24,000, which is widely considered to be below the threshold of a comfortable minimum life. Okay, So maybe in the north east of Scotland you could survive on 15,000. I think you could survive on less than that. If you get the right rent, I suppose. I mean, rent and energy are the two big. I mean, and food, I suppose, as well. But Midlands, £17,500. So there you go. I was just looking at that. Council tax. This is a hidden low budget cost. That might be 80 to 125 £20 per month. Shared factor. Nah, I don't think people should have to share. Inflation. Yeah, inflation could. Yeah. So back to basic income. And I was surprised at this. Iran. In 2010, Iran replaced bread and fuel subsidies with a nationwide monthly cash transfer for all citizens, while it has been eroded by inflation and is now more targeted toward lower income households. It remains one of the largest scale cash transfer systems in history. Well, that's interesting, but I think that people would still rather not be under the Iranian regime, so. And major active pilots in 25-26. Many countries use pilot programs to test the waters before committing to full policy changes. In Ireland, there's the basic income for the arts pilot, which was recently extended to February 26. It provides €325 per week to 2,000 artists to study the impact of financial security on creative work. Yeah, because this is another thing I believe in, like in terms of what, the way the government views those unemployed. They've got to go and get a job, any job. They're not allowed to leave it. And personally, I think you should be allowed to leave a job on the day, or just go for one day, see if you can find. I mean, a person's more likely to find a job that they enjoy that way, rather than having to go somewhere, and if they get the job, that's them. They're expected to turn up forever, really, or until the person wants to pay them off. So, it's a two-way thing. It's not just one. So something like this, I think I can see what they're trying to do, because the arts gives a real value to a place that might not have anything else. Because a lot of the little towns in Scotland now are known as art towns, because they've got a lot of art shops now, and it's a reason to go to them. I'm trying to think, is West Kilbride, I think, and Dalry, I think, places like that. They've started. It's almost a form. It is a form of tourism. It gives people a reason to visit those towns now, because they're not direct tourism places other than that. So you're giving them a human created reason to go to these places. So I can see value in this. €325 a week. I mean, I would imagine a Thatcherite or whatever would see this is absolute nonsense. They can't see the balance. They just look at things in one aspect, really, I would say. And then in South Korea, the Gyeonggi province continues to be a global leader in testing UBI, specifically through its basic income for farmers and youth allowance programs, which provide local currency to specific demographic groups. In Kenya, the non-government organisation Give Directly is currently running one of the world's longest UBI trials, set for 12 years, providing a monthly income to thousands of people across dozens of villages. And in the UK, as of early 26, there is renewed debate in the UK government about using UBI as a concessionary arrangement to support workers whose jobs are displaced by AI. Well, I've not heard of that, actually, what they're talking about there. So it's just given these, apparently in California, they've got a targeted GBI, so for low income and specific groups. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, because Nigel Farage is always talking about we need the risk takers, to stay in the country and create wealth. And by that, he's talking about people who are going to do really well, and they can probably retire at 30, which I think is what Sia Yusuf done, really. I don't know, but he sold his company at 30 to Capital One. And I think a lot of people in the city, that's what they're thinking. Well, I'll sacrifice my 20s so that I can retire at 30 on a luxury income. I don't know, say $1 million a year or something, or whatever. We're not talking about retiring on 10k a year or whatever, at 30. So Nigel believes in it for the risk takers, as he calls them, but I think he should let the poor take the risk as well, because at the moment they can't really. They've just got to get a job, and they've just got to stay in it, even if it's miserable. And like George Galloway says, like if George Galloway wasn't, he says he's making a comfortable life from doing his media stuff, his independent media stuff, on YouTube and that. But if he was gone tomorrow, the world would still go on, and I totally agree with him, and fair due to him for saying that, I mean, we would miss if all opinionators were gone. I mean, a lot of people in society are called commentators. A lot of them are right-wing, and they've got really hard views on tax and, people in benefits and stuff. But to me, they're really just opinionists, like what I'm doing just now as well, They're they're just opinionists. And as social media gets bigger and bigger and mainstream media gets smaller and smaller, that'll become more obvious. You know, at the moment, the news companies find value in their opinion, so they'll get hired by them to discuss stuff, etc. But personally, I don't even watch mainstream media now, so they've got no value to me. And like George Galloway says, if the people on YouTube disappear tomorrow, the world will still go on. I would put it another way. I don't know if George said this as well. And I'm not a fan of George, but on this, some things I agree with him on. You should check out his views on immigration. I think a lot of right wingers out there will be impressed, you know. But yeah, I would put it like, if YouTubers are gone tomorrow, the bins will still get emptied. But if the bins aren't getting emptied, you know, we're in a lot of trouble, you know. So it's actually these low grade jobs that are the most important, really, in a way. So that's my main point. So I'm looking, and also, as I say, like we're coming up for a thing, and that's why I also wanted to go on about immigration, because just as like from 1948 with the biggest change to Britain probably ever. I mean, it's supposed to be a utopia. We could go to jail if we don't think it. If we say it wouldn't be, you know, because we live in a woke Stasi state. It is ironic that the left countries have turned out to be the most Stasi on free speech. And that includes the far left, and they're not allowed to talk about Palestine, no, but that includes the far left, who were really the torchbearers of cancel culture, you know. Although the right want to cancel stuff as well, you know, but like these marches for the poor Palestinians or whatever. I mean, I would agree with you, like, what are the reasons that people are going in those Palestine marches? I mean, there's three groups I can think of. There's the traditional leftist, and then there's a new grouping. And is this new grouping, do they care about the Palestinians, or is it a sort of thing to do with ego or something, you know? I don't know. And then there is people that actually care about the Palestinians, you know, but I would imagine that group's quite small, really, you know. And then the leftists, they all seem to go against the West. So, I mean, for Iran, they're pro-regime, it seems, which is a big shock to me. They're pro-regime, even though, personally, I think they're talking that maybe 50,000 have been slaughtered in Iran over 3 days at the beginning of January, who were all wanting freedom. But the far left are saying that not only did that not happen, but the people actually want the regime to stay. And I think the far left are really going to damage themselves long term as video footage comes out. I've seen footage, to me, you know, really, I've seen enough, and probably it was more than 50,000 in my opinion, but I mean, that's more than what happened in Gaza. Well, I mean, we don't know how many's happened in Gaza, but the official number at the moment is around about 80,000, I think, but that was over 2 years. I mean, this 50,000 was maybe 3 days, and that's if it's true, but we can only judge. At the moment, for the far left, for the pro-regime, there's enough cover for them to deny it, but I think Tony Greenstein, he's anti-regime, and he's getting a lot of flack on the far left for it, and he's usually, you know, he's pro-Gaza as well. So yeah, very muddled people. So yeah, and that's what I was looking at anyway. So as I say, this is for basic income, but Elon Musk's saying high income. So on to Elon Musk, who's saying high income. He's not even saying basic. A concept Elon Musk has been championing as a replacement for the traditional idea of universal basic income. I mean, my general view of Elon Musk, you know, I don't agree with him with a lot of things, like tax or attitude, style. The Doge thing, I think, was a disaster. It was slash and burn. Reform UK said their Doge will not be slash and burn. So that surprised me about Reform, and it changed my image of them a bit. If they're going to be sensible about it, you know, but So he's pretty reckless with Doge, I think. But some of the things he's done from a distant view seem incredible, really. I mean, I don't agree with anyone having billions and billions. I mean, 1 billion max if you want to level it. Then the rest of it should go to the government, because usually these people are making the money from the people in some way, in rent or whatever. They're basically the only shovel sellers in a gold rush or something like that. So, and I don't think they like competition either. If you look at Facebook, Microsoft, etc., they tend to buy up any ones that are coming up. They buy up, and sometimes they just let it wither on the vine, like Vine, which looks to be the same idea as TikTok. A lot of times I think it's just a name that makes it take off. Microsoft bought, well, they bought Skype, and that didn't work out for them, but they've bought others. And then you've got Amazon bought Justin TV or whatever, didn't they? Now it's called Twitch. But there's bigger ones as Facebook bought WhatsApp and Instagram, because they don't like competition, and they know that they want to keep it to a small cartel at least. So I'm just looking at this. But things that Elon Musk's done, like Starlink, which is an incredible thing in my opinion, and now he's Tesla even, e-cars, and he's promoting green energy because it's the right thing to do. It is the future in every aspect. I mean, green energy is win, 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 win. There's no better thing that fossil fuels could do. Or any other non-green type. Back on to Elon Musk. So he's done a lot of good things, I think. So he's definitely someone worth listening to. Musk distinguishes ultra high income from universal basic income by arguing that in a future dominated by AI and robotics, society won't just provide a basic floor for survival, it will provide a lavish standard of living for everyone. Over the last couple of years, from 24 to 26, Musk has shifted his terminology to reflect what he calls a post-scarcity economy. The end of labour. Musk predicts there is an 80% chance that AI and humanoid robots, like Tesla's Optimus, will eventually do all work better than humans. In this benign scenario, human labour becomes optional, essentially a hobby. And I would say, because billionaires can do that, get involved in politics for a hobby, I mean, I'm a big supporter of rule of law and that, and in general, not totally, but he gives his MP wage to charity, but that's because he doesn't need it, because he's very rich. So it's like £93,000. So I don't see anything really good in that. And President Trump as well, he gives his money, but that's because in a way they're not doing it for the money at all. I mean, so wouldn't it be good if it could be like that at every level, Abundance versus scarcity. He argues that when the cost of labour drops to near zero, the cost of goods and services, food, health, housing, healthcare, will also collapse. This would allow the government to provide an income that is high rather than just basic. Because the other thing that's going to drop is, like I say, energy costs. Because personally, I think you could probably live in a house now with free energy, even a house with the income's 30k, if they had solar panels, a battery, maybe a heat battery for their heat. That's what I wouldn't want an air heat pump. And virtual power plants so that they can make money as well from extra electricity. So that could probably be done already. Instead, what the government are doing are giving handouts to protect the fossil fuel companies, basically. I mean, I'm not anti-fossil fuel now, but I don't think we need it anymore. That's the thing. So, so that's what Elon's thing. I mean, money is oxygen. He has recently compared money in this future to oxygen, so abundant that you don't even think about it, even though it still exists in the background. He has gone as far as to say that saving money might eventually become unnecessary. The crisis of meaning. While Musk is optimistic about the economics of UHI, he has expressed serious concern about the psychological impact. Well, that's true. If no one has to work, he often asks, if a computer and robot can do everything better than you, does your life have meaning? He suggests that people will still work if they want to, but only for personal fulfillment or social interaction, not for survival. Yeah, because a lot of people will go into care stuff and no, well, they will start to care into the care profession just as a charity, or picking up litter picking. They might even want to fix the roads or something, I don't know, but, that sort of thing. While Musk's UHI is still a theoretical prediction for the next 10 to 20 years, so that's not that far off, it has influenced real-world policy debates. In early 26, government ministers began discussing UBI as a soft landing for industries displaced by artificial intelligence. So here we go. The Labour government are even talking about it now quite seriously. But I don't think they've done anything yet. But yeah, they probably realise there's just going to be a complete crash on employment needs. Investment accounts. Musk recently commented on Trump accounts proposed $1,000 investment starters for newborns, calling them a nice gesture but ultimately unnecessary in a future world of universal high income. Alright, so is Trump going to start giving newborns $1,000 in some way? Critics often point out that Musk's high-income vision might be a way to delay the conversation about taxing billionaires now to fund the basic income today. Yeah, because, he's probably worth... I think he would be the 16th richest country or something on his wealth alone. By pushing the solution into a future where technology has already solved the problem. Yeah. So who else is talking about it? Sam Altman, he's another tech guy. Billionaire. Oh, he differs in it. I wonder what his view is. So Sam Altman's views are similar to Musk's in terms of their post-scarcity optimism, but his proposed solutions are more focused on ownership and infrastructure rather than just a simple cash handout. So his are like universal basic compute and universal extreme wealth. He started off as a traditional supporter of universal basic income, but he's evolved into two more radical concepts. Just universal basic compute. Instead of giving people dollars, we should give them shares of GPT level compute. The logic in an AI-driven future, intelligence and processing power will be the most valuable commodities. Yeah, I could see a point like giving people shares, As I've told you, 2 years ago, the Nationwide got a new CEO, a Scottish woman, and she decided to treat the Nationwide Building Society like a building society rather than a bank, which all building societies really had been behaving like for decades, except those who became banks and gave their members shares which were worth something, until they all crashed and went out of business in 2008. But yeah, now if you've got a Nationwide current account and £100 in savings, you're almost certainly going to get £100 this year as you did over the last 2 years, because she's treating the profits like she's treating the members like shareholders and giving the members, quote, a dividend, although it's not really a dividend because they don't need to give you it. A bank needs to give shareholders dividends. A building society doesn't need to give its profits to anyone. But she's doing that, and they've got the £200 maximum per month saver at around about 6%. So these sort of things are maybe coming about now, so she's a hero to me, she should be in the Hall of Fame, my Hall of Fame. And then, yeah, but maybe if you could give people shares, if you could give everybody a Bitcoin. I wonder how much, if you had given everyone a Bitcoin in 2011, It can work the other way, can go bad, but even if you could just advise them how to buy a Bitcoin, because most of us don't even know how to do that. So everyone would receive a slice of the large language model's compute. You could use it yourself to build a business, donate it to a cause, or resell it for money. The benefit, it gives people agency. Instead of being passive recipients of cash, people own a piece of the world's most productive engine. And his other idea is universal extreme wealth. Like Musk's universal high income, Altman has moved away from the word basic. The goal, he believes AI will cause massive deflation, making the cost of living plummet. He argues for universal basic wealth, where citizens own a stake in the aggregate value created by AI. He has suggested that the top AI companies like OpenAI could eventually be taxed or structured so that a portion of their equity is distributed to the entire population. So it looks like Altman's done a UBI pilot. So he funded one through his non-profit Open Research. The final results were released in July 24. 1,000 low-income people received $1,000 a month for 3 years with no string attached. Key findings, this was in July 24. Recipients worked about 13 hours less per week. I mean, personally, I believe definitely for people in mundane jobs that they dislike, the norm should be 32 hours per week, because 2 days a week off is not enough. And a lot of people don't even get those 2 days. So it's got to be the other way around. And you're probably going to get more productivity anyway. But like I say, most of these jobs will be taken over by robots and AI. So, yeah, so that's the way I'm looking at it, 32-hour week or whatever. At the moment, say, even if it means a salary cut, I think a lot of people would take that option. But, yeah, back to this. Recipients worked about 1.3 hours less per week. All right. Mostly using that time for leisure or to be more selective about finding a better job. Most of their money went towards basic needs, food, rent and transportation. Interestingly, while it reduced immediate financial stress, it didn't show major long-term improvements in physical or mental health, suggesting that cash alone can't fix systemic issues like healthcare access. Well, I would say it's not enough. How much was it per month? Well, that's quite a lot, actually. Maybe they already had a lot of money. Because I would expect them to do a lot less than 1.3 hours per week, if that's all that they took. I mean, that's not even an afternoon. So, yeah. But also, my last point was, someone said, USA is the best civilization ever. It probably is. I would say it seems like migration patterns are towards the West. So you could say possibly these are the greatest civilizations ever. They seem to be the most desirable at the moment. It would be nice if it wasn't. It would be nice if we were hearing of, the daughters of far left going to study at the University of Delhi or the University of Lagos and hoping to hang around and get citizenship there. Although I don't think it's very difficult to get citizenship in India, I think. But it would be nice, if everywhere it felt was desirable, say, for example, to the far left of the West, in terms, just as an example of using them, because they're big on, the natives of America, Australia, but not the UK. They talk about that sort of thing a lot. And I'm just thinking that just in these decades where our politicians have said that we need population growth, including the Greens, funnily enough, who usually say there's too many people in the world. But just as we need population growth to keep the West going, that's been their saying. Even though in terms of GDP, we've had the biggest growth over the last 10, 15 years. And we've not had any GDP per person growth, I don't think, in Britain. So, yeah. And the way to look at it, it's a new concept. It's never been tried before in humanity. And if you think it's a utopia, That's okay, you can be Prime Minister or whatever. You think it's going to be a utopia. You can lock people up who think otherwise, etc. Uh, Lucy Conley get locked up under a woke Stasi quick law that was thing made or whatever in Britain for an ex post. And just as we've changed these countries, which might be the most desirable countries ever, just as we've changed these countries, and the idea is, it's always been said, we need economic growth or whatever. We've got Elon Musk and people like me thinking, well, automation's going to do away with all these employment stuff, and we're going to be left where these countries are completely different in their nature, the way they're. And in the Bible, there's a Tower of Babel concept, but we're probably not allowed to think that way for the countries. I think. And now we've got people like Larry Fink at Davos saying that countries with shrinking populations, he thinks are economically viable now or in the near future. Who is Larry Fink anyway? So back onto that. Why did he change? I'm not going to look at that one. I'm meaning these ones. For the US, it was 1965, the Hart-Keller Act. It abolished the national origins formula, which had been in place since the 1920s and heavily favoured Northern Europeans, while effectively banning Asians and Africans. So that was the most radical shift in American history. It replaced race-based quotas with a system focused on family reunification and skilled labour, leading to a massive demographic shift over the following decades. Australia, 96 to 73, dismantling white Australia. Australia's policy shifted from a British-only preference to a multicultural model. The change in 1966, the Holt government began allowing non-white migrants to apply for visas. In 1973, the Whitlam government completely renounced the White Australia policy, declaring that race would no longer be a factor. Impact: Australia transitioned into one of the world's most diverse nations, later adopting a strict points-based system in the 1980s. For Canada, it was 1967, the invention of the point system. Canada was the first country to introduce a formal point system. Before 67, Canada favoured European immigrants. The new regulations removed racial discrimination and introduced a system that scored applicants on education, age and language. The impact: this human capital model became the global gold standard for immigration and shifted Canada's primary source of immigrants from Europe to Asia. New Zealand, 1987, the Immigration Act. New Zealand's radical moment was its move away from traditional source countries, Britain. So in 1987, it officially ended the preference for British migrants. Like Canada and Australia, New Zealand shifted towards a merit-based system. It opened the doors to significant migration from the Pacific Islands in Asia, fundamentally changing the country's social fabric. So that's the word, really, social fabric. That should be the phrase. 2019 for Japan, the specified skilled worker system. Japan is historically the most restricted of these nations, making its 2019 shift particularly radical for its context. Facing a massive labour shortage due to an ageing population, Japan created the specified skilled worker visa. This allowed blue-collar workers in fields like construction and nursing to enter and in some cases bring families and stay indefinitely. The impact: it was a de facto end to Japan's no unskilled labour policy, signalling a reluctant but necessary path toward becoming a country of immigration. So there it is, there's the shifts. For UK it was 1948 actually, in this context. So my 2 points about this is, for the people coming, would they rather go to these countries before these laws were passed, like in Britain in 1948, USA pre-1965, before or after, and are they looking forward to the way these countries are going to end up? And also, why is, with China and India being in the top 5 for economic growth, why aren't they places that people seem to want to go? And here I'm looking at India and China. In contrast to the Western nations discussed earlier, China and India have recently implemented radical immigration policies that are ethnocentric rather than multicultural. While Western shifts typically aim to diversify the population, the newest policies in China and India are designed to strengthen the existing ethnic or religious identity of the state. So here's their recent radical pivots. For India, it was 2019 to 25, the ethno-religious pivot. India's policy has shifted towards a model that prioritises religious identity as a gateway to citizenship. The Citizenship Amendment Act, fully implemented in 24-25, provides a fast track to citizenship for persecuted minorities from neighbouring countries, specifically Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsi and Christians. Notably, it excludes Muslims. The radical shift. This is the first time India has used religion as a formal legal criterion for citizenship. Combined with the National Register of Citizens, it creates a framework where those belonging to Indic religions have a safety net for their status, while others may face stricter scrutiny. This policy aims to consolidate India as a refuge for the Indic diaspora, effectively reinforcing the country's Hindu majority identity and changing the demographic balance in border states like Assam. And for China, it was the 24-25 diaspora and tech pivot. China remains one of the hardest countries in the world to immigrate to for non-Chinese people. Its recent radical moves are focused on bloodline and brain power. The change K visa and Q visa in 2024 and 2025, China introduced the K visa for global STEM talent and expanded the Q visa for ethnic Chinese living abroad, while they have also expanded visa-free travel for Europeans and others through 2026. This is purely for tourism, business, not residency. The radical shift. China is moving towards a civilizational state model. It has streamlined permanent residencies specifically for the overseas Chinese diaspora, anyone of Chinese descent, regardless of current nationality. At the same time, it is using AI-driven facial recognition at borders to strictly monitor non-ethnic movement. China's policy is designed to prevent multiculturalism. It seeks to solve its ageing population crisis by re-importing ethnic Chinese from abroad rather than opening doors to other ethnic groups. The goal is to keep the Han Chinese ethnic majority at nearly 92% while importing only specific high-tech skills. So, and just noting that with Japan. Japan is finally opening to blue-collar workers. But China and India are doubling down on cultural preservation. Neither country shows any signs of moving towards Western-style melting pot model. So that was my main point. Well, no, it was another point about we're going to have this there's going to be no jobs soon. And again, the government have unforeseen it. In the West, have just made the biggest changes ever to the countries. I mean, the Romans came, they conquered, but they left as well. And even though, the Anglos came over 1066 or whatever, hardly any of them actually came. I mean, the rich, noble people stayed in there, but I think, but this is the biggest change ever. So, yeah, something to think about. So my closing point is, for China and India in the West, just as we're heading for a utopia of universal high income, possibly, at the same time, the West has went for a multicultural utopia. It's not going to be a Tower of Babel, apparently. And whereas China and India, they're going to have universal high income, but they're not going the multicultural route, So. And when we say multicultural, we say it feels like it's people from, the non-West, maybe from societies that they don't want to stay in for some reason, Whereas somewhere like the US, possibly the greatest civilization ever, it was created by groups groups of people. It's something we can't really talk about because we live in a woke, stazzy society, you know. Or it looks that way. Whereas from 1965, it's changed a lot. And the point is, it's moved into that'll be the new utopia, apparently. So yeah, that's my point about all that. You know, really.